First of all, I would like to start by saying that food is a basic biological necessity, right? Because no matter what culture we are from, we eat, everybody needs food in order to survive. So, in that sense, food is something that links us all as human beings, no matter what culture we are from, right? We like to think of food as part of our personal identity. We also like to look at food as a personal and private matter in terms of because the food that we eat, we might think it's based on our preference, it's based on our taste, right? But food is actually more socially determined that we might believe, right? So food has a social meaning because of the fact that the range of choice and the range of choice of food that we have in a given society is actually determined by that society in which we live. So, for example, in America, we know that, okay, you can have pizza readily available to you. We can have pretzels, or ice cones, right, available to us in this country. But, for example, if you went to Africa, to West Africa, for example, a typical food would be rice, or a typical snack can be grasshoppers, for example, right? Or if you were to go to China, crickets, grasshoppers, or even squids on a stick might be the available and desirable snack, right? So in that sense, food, our culture determines the kind of food choices that are available to us, although food is at the same time personal and private. I believe that it's offensive to say to somebody that you think that what they are eating is gross, because it's not only insensitive, but also disrespectful and offensive to that person's personal choice or personal taste. And also to that person's culture, because in that person's culture, what it is that they're eating might be the most desirable, the most tasteful, and the most readily available food. Right? So just because you come from a different culture where you've never eaten such a thing, or you've never even seen such a thing, does not mean that it's disgusting or that it's gross, right? And I think saying that also translate an idea of being closed-minded, right? Not being open-minded to learning about different cultures, right? And thinking that your culture and your food preferences take precedence or are better than that of this other person whose food you are putting a personal judgment on. I love to cook. I cook all the time. So, for example, in my culture, when we cook, we don't measure. For example, here when I came to the US, right, you have measuring cups. And I mean, it's easy because even if you don't know a recipe, you can look it up and just follow, right? Follow the recipe, follow the the measurements of different ingredients, and it can come out, just as, correctly, right? But the way I grew up and the way I was taught to cook, I don't measure anything. It's like I already know because I've done it several times. I don't need to use a cup to measure. I can just tell what is the right, measurements for this ingredient or for that ingredient. And I just cook that way. So in that sense, culture plays a role, because coming from a culture where we don't use measuring cups to measure the amount of ingredients that we add, but we just go by just like touch or knowledge, just intuition, if you will, right? But in other cultures, like in the Western cultures, you have to measure, right? And you have to make sure that you put the right measurement of whatever ingredient you're using, or it might not come out right. Right? So in that sense, I see the difference. I see how culture plays into the ritual of cooking, or how you cook, for example. So food both demonstrates that we are different and similar at the same time, because of the fact that we have intermingled, right, and shared cultures and food and experiences going back to centuries. We have borrowed from each other, right? We have borrowed the way we cook from each other. We have borrowed the way we eat from each other. And America is an example of that diversity that we see in the food, in the dishes that we eat, in the number of restaurants, in the variety of restaurants that represent the different nationalities of people who exist in this country. But food is really the best way, culturally speaking, to bring people who are different together, right? It brings forth our humanity, right? And our similarity, right? Because through food, you don't even need to speak. It's something you taste, right? It's a palatable experience. And that experience has no borders. That experience has no division, no separation. We all experience it because we are humans, because we have a sense of taste, because we have a sense of smell, right? Those are things that, are part of our humanity, right? So that is an important thing to remember, especially in the context of an international festival where food and culture are center stage, because the goal is to bring us together, is to say that despite the fact that we might come from different continents, that we might come from different countries, that we might come from different cultures, we are really the same, right? Because we can go on this experience together as one, right? And experience the same feelings, the same emotions as we exchange food from each other's cultures.